Enter, rejoice, and log in. Enter, rejoice, and log in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and log in.
Good morning. Enter, rejoice, and log in. It is so good to be together on this Sunday morning. We come together by the light of our chalice flame. If you have a candle or a chalice at home, we invite you to light yours along with us as we say the words that we say together each week at the fellowship. We light this flame as a symbol of new life, enlightening our way, as a symbol of the warmth in every human heart. Let the lighting of this flame rekindle in us the inner light of hope, of peace, of love. May we share that light with all people.
Good morning. We are so glad to welcome you to the Fox Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, whether you are joining us here in this room or from your own home. My name is Mike Yonkers, and I currently serve on the pastoral care team and as a worship leader here at the fellowship. The fellowship has been a spiritual home for me, a place where I can find community, inspiration, and challenge. I would recommend it to anyone looking for those experiences.
Hello, my name is Julie Putman. Returning to the fellowship during a pandemic after a 20-year absence has been a bit of a challenge, but I'm finding ways to be part of this community by saying yes. Yes to providing financial support, yes to the care of children in the nursery, yes to journey groups, yes to Spill It Sister, yes to assisting immigrants in our community and living out our UU principles. If this is your first time visiting the fellowship, we want to extend to you a special welcome. Our Director of Congregational Life, Marie Luna, would love to help you get connected here. Feel free to chat with her after the service or send her an email. And thank you to everyone who has made this morning's service possible.
It's time now to settle in. Take a deep breath. Become aware of your body wherever you are. Allow yourself to come into this sanctuary so we can be fully present to this time together.
We are gathered together here and from our own homes. We are so happy to see you, and we're so glad you are here with us. Our call to gather is from I Want to Be with People by the Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Dana E. Worsnip. Often people say they love coming to a place with so many like-minded people. I know just what they're getting at, and I know that they're not getting it quite right. I don't want to be with a bunch of people who think just like me. I want to be in a beloved community where I don't have to think like everyone else to be loved, to be eligible for salvation. I want to be with people who value compassion, justice, love, and truth, though they have different thoughts and opinions about all sorts of things. I want to be with independent-minded people of good heart. I want to be with people who have many names and no name at all for God. I want to be with people who see in me goodness and dignity, who also see my failings and foibles, and who still love me. I want to be with people who feel their interconnection with all existence and let it guide their footfalls upon the earth. I want to be with people who see life as a paradox and who don't always rush to resolve it. I want to be with people who are willing to walk the tightrope that is life and who will hold my hand as I walk mine. I want to be with people who let church call them into a different way of being in the world. I want to be with people who support, encourage, and even challenge each other to higher and more ethical living. I want to be with people who inspire one another to follow the call of the Spirit. I want to be with people who covenant to be honest, engaged, and kind, who strive to keep their promises and hold me to the promises I make. I want to be with people who give of themselves, who share their hearts and minds and gifts. I want to be with people who know that human community is often warm and generous, sometimes challenging, and almost always a grand adventure. In short, I want to be with people like you. Come, let us worship together.
Being a community in a time in our world when community is difficult to build and sustain, undervalued by many, is a challenge and a gift. We are here together for the purpose of community, and part of that purpose is supporting each other and supporting our community for the present and the future. For those of you who would appreciate some support, we are here to help. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Reverend Christina or Minister Allie if you are in need of financial or emotional support. It is a joy for us to be able to offer help. And if you are one who is feeling more stable and able to give, we ask that you do so in the spirit of community. There are many ways to give to the fellowship. You can give of your time and talent, and we especially need financial resources to allow our ministries to thrive for months and years to come. If you already give via electronic funds or EFT, we appreciate that. For everyone else, we encourage you to donate online or via our text to give function on a smartphone. Thank you. Your gifts are deeply appreciated.
Our settling song is Be Ours a Religion. Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere, its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all truth, its ritual works of love.
For our first reading today, we'd like to share with you a video from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashua, New Hampshire.
Religious and spiritual are two words that we use a lot, but we often don't have a shared understanding of what they mean. Sometimes people think that to be religious, you have to have a set of beliefs that everyone in a group adheres to. Sometimes people think that to be spiritual, you have to like meditation or yoga. Sometimes people use religious and spiritual to mean the same thing. And sometimes people will say very clearly that they are spiritual but not religious. So, what does it mean to be spiritual? What does it mean to be religious? According to the covenant triangle created by Natalie Briscoe, spiritual and religious are two ways that we relate to our transcendent centers of value and power. This is a fancy way of talking about the ways we connect to something bigger than ourselves and to those things that are most important to us. We sometimes call that something bigger, that which is most important to us, our core values. We try to live out those core values in everything we do. Here at UU Nashua, our core values are wonder, authentic connection, courageous community, and love in action. So, in the covenant triangle, core values are at the top of the triangle. In the bottom left-hand corner, we put me. That's you as an individual. And on the bottom right-hand corner, we put we. That's us as a congregation or as a larger faith community. And the sides of the triangle represent the ways that individuals and communities relate to those core values. Spiritual is the connection between core values and me. It is how you as an individual connect to and live out those values. This could be an individual spiritual practice. It could be your individual commitment to working for justice. It could be the inspiration for your choices about how you live and love as an individual. Religious is the connection between core values and we. It is how we as a congregation or as a larger faith connect to and live out those values together. This could be coming together for worship. It could be our collective commitment to working for justice. It could be the way we make choices together about how to live and love as a community. Together, we live our values and we are transformed by them. The last side of the triangle is the connection between me and we, community. It is how you relate to your congregation or to your larger faith. It is the work you do to become part of the community. This could be through meeting new people and being open to learning from one another. It could be through a small group or taking on a leadership role. It could be as simple as showing up, being present to the community and to one another. In community, we find ways to connect and to be both spiritual and religious. And in the center of it all, we have covenant. Covenant is the promises we make together about how we are going to live out those core values, about how we want to be with one another and in the world. Those promises hold together the spiritual, the religious, and the community. So I wonder how you connect to the different parts of this covenant triangle. I wonder what you do in your life that you would call spiritual. I wonder what you do in your life that you would call religious. I wonder what you do in your life to connect to your community.
Our second reading is from the book of Ruth in the Hebrew Bible, as translated by Rabbi A.J. Rosenberg. This book begins by telling the story of an Israelite woman named Naomi. Naomi and her husband have 2 sons, and their sons each have their own wife. One wife is named Orpah, and the other is named Ruth. Now, within the first few verses of the book, the men in this family all die, and Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth are left together. At this time, Naomi tells her daughters-in-law, "You should go. You have been wonderful to me and my sons, but I have nothing for you. You should go back to your own people, your own families of origin." In chapter 1, verse 16, we hear Ruth responding to Naomi's invitation to leave. The scripture tells us this. "And Ruth said, 'Do not entreat me to leave you, to return from following you. For wherever you go, I will go. And wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people. Your God, my God.'" Hear these words.
Please join me in singing, "Let This Be a House of Peace." Let this be a house of peace, of nature and humanity, of sorrow and elation. Let this be our house, a haven for the healing, an open room for questions and our inspiration. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of freedom, a guardian of dignity and worth held deep inside us. Let this be our house, a platform for the free voice, where all our sacred differences here shall not divide us. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house to seek truth, where scientists and mystics abide in reverence here. Let this be our house, a house of our creation, where works of art and melodies consecrate the atmosphere. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace.
When someone declares themselves fervently religious, my initial response is to back away slowly, without making any sudden movements. I spy the nearest exit so as to escape the inevitable next question: what's your religion? I'm more spiritual than religious, is my safety response. They usually let out a short sigh. Oh. It's my gentle way of simultaneously answering their question while also indicating that I'd rather not open this case of emotional dynamite while you sit there playing with your lighter, even if it does have a crucifix running down the side. Typically, the conversation continues into more docile, mutually agreeable territory, like how it's been such a blessing that it's been above freezing all week. I walk away feeling uneasy. No, frustrated. No, enraged. I'm more than a checkbox. My beliefs and virtues and attitudes cannot be neatly categorized into a singular word or dogma. Furthermore, as I've grown up, I've had my own myriad of trials and tribulations, and if I had to guess, will continue to have, and thus I will continue to adapt and evolve my own beliefs. And now I remember their O becomes loaded with the subtext, "You're one of those," as if I am helplessly drowning in a sea of uncertainties, too afraid or confused to stand up for something. Kicking myself, I begin to wonder if I should have declared myself a Unitarian Universalist. What's that? The inevitable next question. Well, how much time do you have? My inevitable next question. You see, the truth is, I often find myself in a sea of uncertainties. Yet, I don't see myself as drowning, but as wandering. And through this wandering journey, I've found many incredibly beautiful people who may not fit into any other box. Yet together, we wander to see what curiosities we can find, the truths we can celebrate, the moments we can lean on one another. As to what may come next, no one really knows. Yet what I do know is that I will not be alone.
Thank you so much, Alex, for your reflection. Yes, I will not be alone. I spent quite a bit of my 20s doing the whole online dating thing. And if you looked at my profile back then, the box marked religious affiliation. In that box, you would see that I, one of your ministers, had selected spiritual but not religious. I have a bit in common with Alex that way. But this term, spiritual but not religious, it didn't actually feel like an accurate description of myself. I'm the daughter of 2 Presbyterian ministers. I grew up in the church. I found Unitarian Universalism as an adult. And during that period of my life, I was going to church nearly every week, whether it was a UU church or one of my parents' churches. I feel very lucky to say that religion has always been a huge and beautiful part of my life. So why then did I say spiritual but not religious on my online dating profile? I mean, if anything, I felt more connected to my religious communities than I did to my own spirituality at that time. Well, you see, in the world of online dating, I hoped to match with people who shared similar progressive values as me. And if I'm honest, I was worried that including any sort of nod to religion on my profile would scare those people away. Even during my first year of seminary, when I met my partner Justin on one of these dating websites, I still felt weird about my first impression in this way. Instead of saying on my profile that I was a student in seminary preparing to become a minister one day, I said I was a graduate student. I was a graduate student studying religion. That seemed like a safe distance, right? Studying religion. Oh, me? No, I'm not religious. I'm just studying religion. How many of us in this community, like me, like Alex, have felt similar discomfort identifying with words like religious or religion? Yeah, it can be a pretty loaded concept. So it's important then for us to ask, what even are we talking about when we use that word religion? I love that video that we saw from the UU Church in Nashua earlier in the service, where they shared that covenant triangle as articulated by UU religious education expert Natalie Briscoe. In that video, we saw them designate religious as a term for how we as a community connect to our core values, those values at the top of the triangle. Now, our UU ancestors and our siblings in Judeo-Christian traditions would put these core values under the idea of God. And perhaps you do too. So I invite us to think of this as something even deeper than values. What is it that to us is divine and sacred? Some theologians call it our ultimate concern. What is it that we as a community seek to orient ourselves toward? Prominent Unitarian Universalist theologian James Luther Adams and other UU theologians who have followed his work, they put this a different way. They ask us, where do our loyalties lie? And so I ask all of you right now, as our fellowship community, where do our loyalties lie? What is our ultimate concern? What is it that we find to be divine and sacred? I invite you to go ahead now and type in the chat box some ideas. Where do our loyalties lie? And I'll ask Alex to share with me what they read in the chat box. Humanity, family, love, inherent worth and dignity, community, compassion, justice, empathy, the dignity and well-being of everyone. Thank you. Aligning ourselves with these loyalties as a community, that's a religious act. The act of turning toward that which is divine and sacred together, that is a religious act. Turning toward the sacred in how we speak, in what we do, in how we think, how we pray or meditate, how we worship, how we sing, how we move about the world, that is religion. Saying to each other, hey, we are on this journey together, figuring out together what is most important in our existence and how to live in ways that reflect that. And opening ourselves up to the transformation that that brings. That is religion. Doing this together. It reminds me of our reading today from the Hebrew Bible, the book of Ruth. Now, in that story, Ruth chooses to tell her mother-in-law, wherever you go, I will go. Your people shall be my people, your God, my God. In the context of the time, Ruth was not making a religious statement here. It was a tribal statement. Ruth was from the land of Moab, and this was her way of telling her mother-in-law, who was an Israelite, I'm one of you now. I'm one of your people. It was certainly a leap of faith, but Ruth said, hey, we're on this journey together now, and we now hold the same thing sacred. That sounds lovely, right? It just sounds nice. So what's the point? How is this helpful? I certainly don't need a religious community in order to live out my values. I don't need religion in order to understand where my loyalties lie. But here's the thing. Once we have this understanding of what it means to be religious, this question of what are we loyal to, we start to ask this question in other spaces as well. Even in spaces that don't call themselves religious. Even in what we think of as the secular world, the world that is supposedly outside of religion. And in fact, we start to see that the religious world and the secular world, they're not that different. Take the field of economics, for example. That field is considered secular, right? Not religious. And yet look at the economic models that economists have been using for years. Models like supply and demand. People want stuff, stuff is supplied. People want stuff, stuff is supplied. These models haven't taken into account the toll of extracting resources from the earth, or the pollution put out into the atmosphere by factories. The field of economics has no loyalty to, love, community, connection, humanity. Its loyalty is to the market. And it's brought so many of us along with it to worship at the shrine of commerce and production and profit. The religious world and the secular world, they're not that different. What about science? Us UUs, we love our science. Science is a secular thing, right? Although it wasn't that long ago when many scientists, including some of our UU ancestors, were caught up in the violence of eugenics. The idea of creating what was thought to be a superior race of human. Their loyalty was not with love and compassion and connection and community. Their loyalty was with what they thought was progress. Progress that masked deep racism and ableism underneath. These scientists brought their communities with them to worship at the shrines of innovation and their ideas about evolution. The religious world and the secular world, they're not that different. We are always being pulled towards one loyalty or another, whether we name that as religious or not. My offer to us today is to perhaps reclaim the idea of religion in this way and harness its power. Because when done well, religion can act as a check and balance to the harmful ideas in our world that go unquestioned because they are secular. Religion can be a powerful tool of resistance. It's a promise to be a part of a community that answers to something deeper, something right, something good, something sacred. At my first Unitarian Universalist church, I was volunteering to serve and clean up coffee hour one day. Oh, remember coffee hour? That was nice. I was still pretty new to the church, so as we were doing the dishes, the other gentleman who was volunteering with me was kindly telling me all the things that he loved about the congregation. You know, we're less of a church and more of a social club, he said. I like that. I have my own individual spirituality, and I can come here and be with other people who have their own spiritual practices, and no one is shoving any beliefs or anything like that down our throats. I think back on this conversation a lot. How so many of us find comfort in our UU spaces because we don't want beliefs or anything like that shoved down our throats, or because we've seen a lot of harm done in the name of religion. We see a truck with a sticker on the back showing a white Jesus waving an American flag. We've heard Hobby Lobby executives and legislators trying to control women's bodies in the name of religion. We've learned of deep harm done by religious professionals who have bad theologies. We've heard hateful things spouted by people quoting the Bible. We grieve the missionary work that attempted to erase entire cultures. The world of religion is certainly vulnerable to racism, sexism, homophobia, and tons of other societal poisons. And we've seen the idea of religion be misused time and again as a tool to spread these poisons. That harm is real. And it's important for us to name it and to find healing for ourselves and for our communities. And also, when I think back to my new friend's description of a Unitarian Universalist community as a social club, I can't help but feel disappointed. A social club full of people with their own individual spiritualities. Personal spiritual journeys are great, and they are important. But we as individuals, we have limitations. Limitations in what we each can know and experience. Limitations in what we can accomplish individually. Limitations in what we can imagine for ourselves and for the world. Limitations in our power to resist harmful forces around us. When we bring our spirituality into a community, however, a community with loyalties to love and justice and connection and compassion and humanity and all those other things we named, all that is right and good, a community that can hold us accountable to our values. A community constantly turning toward what is sacred and what is divine. When we bring ourselves to this community with open hearts, with faith and trust and hope, there's no telling how we can be transformed, and how our community can transform the world around us. No social club or self-help empire can promise that. Let our service this morning be an invitation to reclaim religion in this way. Just try it, just an invitation. An invitation into a community that says to each other, where you go, I go, your people are my people, your God is my God. What is sacred to you is sacred to me. Your divine is my divine. I invite you just to try saying that and to feel what it's like for someone else to say that to you. What if we just saw where that takes us? May it be so, and amen.
Where
Part of our commitment to each other is to bring our joys and our concerns to this time together. It is our sincere hope that we can be a resource in our common quest to celebrate happy moments and seek healing and wholeness in this complex journey of life. We will put into the chat box those joys and concerns that have been submitted by people in our circle of care. And you can also share in the chat box whatever joy, concern, prayer request, or intention might be on your heart and on your mind. For care and connection during the week, please reach out to myself or contact our office. If you'd like your joy or concern to be included in our weekly Joys and Concerns email, you can call or contact anyone on staff or fill out our website form. May the joys and concerns we share with each other, or those we simply hold in our hearts' silent sanctuaries, may they allow our joy to be amplified, our sorrow comforted, and our life's journeys witnessed. We now turn our attention to the joys and concerns wider than those of this gathered community. We allow our mind and our heart to reach out in ever-widening circles, outward like ripples in water. For each stone that we place in our water here, we name joys and concerns in our larger community and in the wider world. Our first stone is for the joys, concerns, and transitions that are here among us. As that water ripples out, we add another stone, expanding our hearts to the United States. We hold in our hearts the East Coast, as this weekend brought a historic nor'easter that included blizzard conditions, hurricane-force winds, and coastal flooding. We pray for safety for all in the storm's path. We add another stone for the wider world. Tomorrow marks the beginning of the Lunar New Year. We lift up this joyful occasion and celebrate with all who observe this turning of the year. And as those ripples continue, we recognize our interconnectedness across borders and oceans as we add another stone for those countries and regions without widespread access to COVID-19 vaccines. We recognize that bringing an end to this pandemic must be a global effort, and we pray for our world leaders to be guided by this wisdom. We enfold all who are celebrating and all who are suffering in the embrace of our hearts and commit ourselves to acts of compassion and justice in service to those circles beyond our own. May this moment of silence help make it so.
Our time together is coming to a close, which means our time to return to the world and to our daily lives is beginning. Remember that there are always ways to get connected here, even online, and to live your faith more fully. Be sure to read the weekly Scroll e-newsletter or let us know if you wanted to be added to the mailing list. Check the order of service for some highlights about what's coming up. Now, as we prepare to leave this gathering, we invite you to consider what you wish to take home with you, what lesson, idea, or theme you will carry with you from this time together back into your daily lives. Our hope is that it will serve as inspiration and empowerment for your week ahead. Thank you for coming. It's good to be together. And now please join me in our unison words for extinguishing our chalice flame, even as we continue to hold its warmth and light in our hearts. As we extinguish this flame, let us go our ways with hope in our hearts, with our spirits renewed, and with a deeper understanding of life's mystery. Let us carry the light of compassion and commitment to build a better world. After our closing words, we will hear a postlude song. We invite those of you who want to stay on Zoom for a small group conversation. A member of the care team will host a group for anyone who wants to share more deeply about what is going on in your life. Another group will be for conversation about the themes of the service with Allie and Alex. There will be a final group for informal, unmoderated chit-chat. Everyone else is welcome to use that time to log off. Go in faith, grounded in this religious community. Go in peace, knowing we wait to embrace you upon your return.